Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news, the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Currently, pretty much well, feeling better, and thank you for the comments and stuff. But anyway, we're going to talk about Marathon real quick as an update. We're going to go through player counts on Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation, at least as much as we can see. We're going to see that Crypto Archive, the new map, launched. And then we're also going to take a look at TeamLFG and also Sony Stock. And the real question is it sustainable enough for Bungie to keep going? So let's have a look. This is what we currently have with Marathon. We're roughly with our first little bump at 53,500, which is pretty good. Expect this to go down for a little bit, and then currently in the next, I don't know, few hours, we'll probably get this second little rise. So maybe we'll get to 55 or 56,000 again. We'll have to see now that that new map is open. The problem is that the new map and Outpost, they're both really good maps compared to the original ones, but that's really not going to have a better onboarding experience for some people. So, and it is definitely some work to get into Crypto Archive. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is definitely going to take some effort. So here it's a solo or with a work map will require you to be at least level 25 and have all 6 faction liaison contracts completed, or the map cannot be played solo or with Rook, excuse me. Also have a loadout of 5,000 credits or more to load into the map, and then finally you can only load into Crypto Archive match with a team of 3 players or 3 players match made together. And this is the actual map. There's a lot of different points and things going on. It's quite busy, and then it's quite challenging too. So it would be very interesting for those that have actually gotten this far already. But again, as we can see, it maybe hasn't really pulled a ton of players back from the initial launch that we had of 88,000. We also can't forget, too, that we also had a beta test, basically, of 143,000, I believe, or maybe it was 145. We'll say 143. And, you know, a good chunk of basically 40% didn't come back to actually buy the game and play it on Steam. And yeah, which is a pretty big drop already. And then maybe we're going to be in this band now between 25 and 50,000 players for a while, because that does actually look pretty stable so far with what it is. And this is the weekend. This was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and still into Sunday. Monday will be pretty soon. When we take a look at Destiny, it's pretty awful still. We can barely get to 10,000 for a peak on the day, even on the weekend. Some people have come back, but we know that the content is delayed until, I believe, June. And while some people have come back, again, it's probably just not really going to make a lot of money for Bungie. When we take a look at PlayStation TimeTracker, again, this is not everybody, but this is looking at roughly 17,000 players. If you wish to be a part of the tracker, you can put Track Lion as your friend in your friends list, and you'll be added to this. So this is not a perfect picture, but this is the only picture that we have. When we take a look at the last 30 days, we're taking a look at Marathon being number 26, and we only have about 227 of those currently out of almost 17,000 that are actually playing the game. Almost all of these other games, even Arknight's Infield or some of the other lower ones, they all have higher player counts, which is kind of insane. So that's finally the first one, Stardew Valley at number 51. They actually have a lower player count than Marathon. So Marathon does not have a lot of players out of this entire list. And when we take a look at the last 7 days, we're seeing Marathon at number 18. We were at number 14 or 15, and then 17 a few days ago, and now we're at number 18. And so, again, not as many people are playing this, and this also shows a lower player count in the last 30 days. So some people have already dropped off from that and haven't come back over the weekend. And this is updated at least within the last 24 hours, I believe. Now, with Xbox, it has a delay of probably about 2 or 3 days. And this is just with Series X and S. And when we take a look, this is the first 25. And no Marathon in the first 25. We look at the next for a total of 50, no Marathon. Look at the next. Destiny 2 is actually on there. That's number what? 50. Number 55 is Destiny 2. And we still don't see any Marathon. We're taking a look now at the all the way out to 100. Still no Marathon. And then we're loading in the next 25, and here we are. 112 is Marathon. So yeah, the player count dropped off pretty quick. We used to have Marathon at number 8, then we had it in the teens, and then the 20s. Then we had it around 40 or 50, and now we're at 112. So it's definitely dropped off a lot. People have not necessarily come back for this. We'll have to see if the Cryo Archive map is going to bring players back, but I kind of think not ultimately. We also know too that from Bungie came TeamLFG, and they are still definitely working on their game, and there are career positions open, some big ones: game engineer, director, principal service engineer, production director, senior services engineer, and staff gameplay designer. So some of these are some pretty big positions. They're probably going to be running into full production pretty soon. And again, with TeamLFG, we don't really know much about their game, but that it is going to be very multiplayer, action-based type of focus of game. Is called Project Gummy Bears. That's the last we've heard of it. But yeah, we probably won't be seeing anything from this for quite some time. So this was money too to ultimately set up, and most of the core members came over from Bungie. It was roughly like 30 to 50 out of Bungie itself. So, and Bungie too has roughly about 1,000 devs right now. We see anywhere from 850 all the way to like 1,200. So I'm just saying 1,000 just for a nice round number. But again, so far, I'm not sure if it's really enough with Destiny 2, TeamLFG's game that's coming probably in a few years, and then also Marathon currently, if it's really enough to sustain Bungie as a company. Now, right here, we've already been, Marathon was supposed to launch, I believe, in September. Well, that ended up being delayed. We kind of stayed here for a couple of months, and then we started heading back down when we got the numbers for Black Friday and the holidays. It wasn't really that great or as good as they were expecting. And we've just kind of been selling off ever since. Now, we had the launch of Marathon roughly right here, about $23 and some cents. And, well, that hasn't really panned out either. We're now at just above $20. So Sony is not necessarily just PlayStation. There's other departments too. But we know that PlayStation or Sony is not necessarily doing super well because they've removed one of their departments, which was finances or financial, and then they've also changed their TV business and are selling to TCL, or making a partnership, with TCL to basically make their TVs cheaper to make. So if you want a really nice Sony TV, maybe now would be the time to get one before they make those changes. That partnership deal is supposed to be solidified or finalized at the end of 26 or maybe into 27. Depends how things go. But, as these other departments kind of get cannibalized or disappear entirely, PlayStation becomes a bigger part of Sony, and that just applies more pressure to all of the studios that Sony actually has, or that PlayStation actually has. Also, their payout ratio has not changed. Their dividends are not super good. And then, their margin of how much money they're making, they're basically making about 10%. And it's not really going up much above that. So that means for every $100 is going in, they're getting 110 back. But again, if Marathon doesn't do well and if Bungie goes down, this will definitely affect Sony stock and profit margins and all of that stuff. And that's not great. We don't know exactly how much Marathon has cost them, but we do know that it's some type of a AAA budget, and what that means is that it's at least a couple $100 million, maybe upward of 300 million when you include marketing and all of this other stuff. So they really need to sell a lot of copies. The look that I did of how many copies they would need to sell was somewhere between probably 4.5 to maybe 5 million copies. But that also didn't include taxes. That also didn't include server costs, post-launch stuff, all of that. It was just basically to break even on the budget and paying the difference or the fees to Xbox and Steam. They wouldn't have to pay fees on their own platform, of course, because they own it. But yeah, still having to sell, over 5 million copies just to break even when encompassing everything. That is a ton of copies. And we haven't heard anything on how the game is doing. So I don't know. I don't think Bungie can survive this one. Bungie has already had 3 sets of layoffs. They've also already had lost their independent control. And They're now directly under PlayStation Publishing, so they're keeping a closer eye on them. And I still think the pressures to perform are definitely there. And yeah, Bungie so far has roughly been a $4 billion investment to this point, maybe even a little more than that. But yeah, it's been expensive. And so I think they will give more room to run. But two, Destiny is not doing them any favors. They're not making a ton of money from that. TeamLFG is not going to produce anything anytime soon and is also costing them money. And then, yeah, we have Marathon, which can we even get back to 88,000 players? Probably not. And yeah, this is troublesome. And I know that Bungie is not the same company, but partly it's just sad for the legacy that they've had. And if you've been alive long enough and you've played games long enough for the last couple of decades, you've gotten to see almost every single major developer and publisher that you grew up with just kind of deteriorate or completely fail or somewhere in between. And it's just kind of sad. So, anyway, what do you guys think? Do you enjoy Marathon? Do you hate Marathon? I don't overly care because what I care more about is what's going to happen with Bungie and PlayStation. And I think the more companies there are in the gaming space, the more healthier ultimately the gaming industry can be, and it's ultimately too better for us. So no, I don't want anything to fail, but I do want things to improve. But yeah, it's just tough for companies right now, including Bungie. So we'll see what happens with that, folks. I'll see you guys on the next one.